Hello everyone and welcome back to Shadow Man Stories. I can picture some of you already in bed, maybe some of you just getting home from work. Wherever you are, whatever time it is, I'm glad you're here. If this helps you relax or sleep, please like and subscribe. It means a lot. Now, let's get you comfortable, and I'll tell you tonight's story. My name is Margaret Thornhill, but everyone calls me Maggie. I've been a ranger with the U.S. Forest Service for 12 years now, stationed in the Boundary Waters Canoe area, wilderness up in northern Minnesota. That's right on the Canadian border, where the lakes freeze solid and the wolves still outnumber people by a long shot. I grew up in Duluth, daughter of a commercial fisherman, spent my childhood learning to read weather patterns and respect Lake Superior's moods. When I was 26, I married a man who turned out to have fists faster than his brain. Took me 2 years to leave him, and when I did, I wanted to go somewhere he'd never think to follow. The deep woods seemed like a good choice. I live alone at Ranger Station 14, accessible only by snowmobile in winter. My job involves winter patrols, wildlife population counts, and occasionally pulling stupid ice fishermen out of freezing water. I pulled 2 guys out of Lac La Croix back in '85 when they went through thin ice. Got a commendation for that one. People ask me if I get scared out here. Honestly, no. I've tracked wolves for population studies. I've weathered storms that bent pine trees sideways. I know cold that'll freeze your breath into ice crystals before it leaves your mouth. The wilderness doesn't scare me because I understand it. It has rules. You learn them, you respect them, you survive. The supernatural stuff, though, that's different. I never believed in the wendigo. The Ojibwe elders around here tell stories about it. Some kind of evil spirit that possesses people during harsh winters, turns them into cannibalistic monsters with an endless hunger. I figured it was just campfire stories meant to keep kids from wandering into the woods alone. Every culture has their boogeyman, right? Then January 1987 happened. We were in the middle of a brutal cold snap. I'm talking 40 below zero RPM. It's the wind chill. The kind of cold that makes your nose hairs freeze instantly and your eyes water so bad the tears turn to ice on your cheeks. 3 feet of snow on the ground, and more coming down every other day. Most sensible people stayed home, but there's always someone who thinks they're tougher than winter. On January 11th, I got a distress call over the satellite phone. Cross-country skier, male, 52 years old, named Robert Halverson. He'd been doing a solo expedition along the border lakes, which is legal but incredibly stupid this time of year. His voice on the phone was shaky, out of breath. "I need help," he said. "Something's following me. Something that... I don't know how to explain this." "Mr. Halverson, calm down," I told him. "Are you injured? What's your location?" 8 miles north of Lac La Croix. I doubled back on my own trail, and there are other tracks. Barefoot tracks. In this weather. Who the hell goes barefoot in 40 below? "Could be another skier who got hypothermic," I said, already pulling on my gear. Hypothermia makes people do crazy things. I'd heard of victims stripping naked because the cold makes them feel like they're burning up. "I'm coming to you. Stay put. Build a fire if you can." "You don't understand," he said. His voice dropped to a whisper. "It was eating the rabbits from my snares, raw. And when I got close, it looked at me. It smiled. Jesus Christ, it smiled with too many teeth." The line went dead. I loaded my emergency gear onto my snowmobile, medical kit, emergency blankets, flares, rope, my service pistol, and extra ammunition. I also grabbed my satellite GPS tracker and made sure my backup radio was charged. Frank Morrison, the district ranger, was in town that day, but I radioed him anyway to let him know what I was doing. "Be careful out there, Maggie," he said. "Weather Service says another storm's coming in tonight." "I'll be back before it hits," I promised. I should have listened to the feeling in my gut right then. That little voice that said something was wrong. But I'd made that promise to myself years ago. Never leave someone behind in the wilderness. Not when I could help. The snowmobile ride took 45 minutes. The landscape was beautiful in that harsh, unforgiving way only deep winter can manage. Frozen lakes stretched white and flat between islands of dense pine forest. The trees were so heavy with snow they looked like they were bowing under the weight. The sky was that weird pale gray that means more snow is coming. Everything was quiet, too quiet. I noticed it about halfway there. No birds, no animal tracks crossing the snow, nothing. In 12 years of winter patrols, I'd never seen the forest this empty. I found Halverson's campsite at 2:47 p.m. I know the exact time because I logged it in my report later, and because some moments burn themselves into your memory with perfect clarity. The tent was destroyed, not collapsed from snow weight, not blown over by wind. Destroyed. The fabric was shredded into ribbons, and here's the thing that made my stomach drop. It was torn from the inside out. The poles were bent outward, snapped in places. His sleeping bag had been ripped apart, feathers everywhere like someone had gutted a giant bird. His food cache was scattered across the snow, cans torn open, not with a can opener, but with bare hands. The metal was peeled back like flower petals. Nothing was eaten, though. Just destroyed, thrown around, smashed. I called out, "Mr. Halverson? Robert Halverson, this is Ranger Thornhill." Nothing. I walked the perimeter of the camp, looking for tracks. Found his ski trail coming in from the south. Found where he'd set up camp. Found where he'd moved around doing normal camping things. Then I found the other tracks. Barefoot. Human-sized at first, but the toes were spread wide like someone walking through deep snow without shoes. The prints were dark, not just indentations in the snow, but stained, dark with something. I bent down to look closer. Blood. Frozen blood. The tracks came from the north, circled the camp multiple times, then headed back north. I followed them for about 20 yards and noticed something that made my skin crawl. The footprints were changing. The first ones looked normal if you ignored the bare feet in deadly cold. But as they progressed, the toes seemed longer, the heel narrower, the stride wider. Like whatever made them was transforming as it walked. I found the claw marks next. 3 trees in a row, scraped deep enough to expose white wood beneath the bark. The marks were vertical, starting at about 7 feet up and dragging down to waist height. Not bear claws. I knew bear claw marks. These were thinner, more deliberate. And at the base of one tree, I found what had made them. Fingernails. Human fingernails, torn off and bloody, embedded in the bark. My radio crackled with static. I pulled it out, but before I could speak, I heard something underneath the white noise. Voices, whispering, dozens of them, overlapping, too faint to make out words. I shut the radio off fast. That's when my snowmobile engine died. I tried to restart it 3 times. Nothing. The engine just clicked uselessly. I checked the fuel line, the battery connections, everything I knew to check. Mechanically, it was fine. It just wouldn't start. I was 8 miles from my station in 40 below weather with no transportation and a missing person. "Okay, Maggie," I said out loud, because hearing my own voice helped. "Think. Halverson is hypothermic, confused, wandering. You need to find him before he freezes to death." I followed his ski trail heading north, away from the destroyed camp. He'd been moving fast, no longer following proper cross-country technique. Just running. The tracks showed he'd fallen twice, gotten back up, kept going. I found his ski poles after a quarter mile, just dropped in the snow. Found one ski after another 100 yards, found his jacket after that. Classic hypothermia behavior. He was stripping as he ran, his bodies. Temperature regulation completely broken. I moved faster, knowing he couldn't have much time left. I found him at 3:17 p.m. What was left of him? I've seen death before. Car accidents, drownings, a logging accident once. But nothing like this. Robert Halverson was in 3 pieces, scattered across about 100 yards of frozen lake. His legs were together, still in his ski pants. His torso was separate, 30 yards away. His head was missing entirely. The snow around the body parts was churned up, stained red and frozen into pink ice. I saw drag marks where he'd tried to crawl. I saw handprints in the blood where he'd tried to push himself away from something. But what made me fall to my knees in the snow, what made me forget my training and my 12 years of experience were the bite marks. On his arms, his ribs, his legs, deep, tearing bites that had removed chunks of flesh. And the bite radius, the teeth marks in the bone. They were human. Human dental patterns, human jaw size. Something had eaten Robert Halverson. Not a bear, not wolves. The bite marks were wrong for animals. Something with human teeth had torn him apart and eaten him while he was still alive. I threw up in the snow. Couldn't help it. Then I radioed for help, hands shaking so bad I could barely hold the transmitter. Station 14 to District Ranger Morrison. Frank, I need immediate assistance. I have a fatality. Multiple fatalities. Jesus, Frank, someone killed and ate him. Static for a long moment. Then Frank's voice, very calm, very serious. Maggie, describe the scene. Everything. I did. The destroyed camp, the changing footprints, the claw marks, the body. Another long pause. Maggie, listen to me very carefully, Frank said. I need you to look around right now. Do you see any tracks leading away from the body? I looked. Yeah. North. Barefoot prints, but they're... Frank, they don't look human anymore. The toes are too long and... Do not follow those tracks, Frank interrupted, his voice sharp. Do you hear me? Do not follow them under any circumstances. Frank, what the hell? I'm loading my truck now. I'll be there in 2 hours. Get to high ground. Build a fire. Stay in the open. Do not go into the tree line. Do not follow the tracks. You need to tell me what's happening. I'm bringing silver bullets and sage, he said. And Maggie? If you see anything moving in the trees, anything at all, you shoot first and ask questions later. The radio clicked off. Silver bullets? Sage? Frank Morrison was the most practical, no-nonsense ranger I'd ever met. He didn't believe in anything he couldn't see, measure, or punch. I looked at Robert Halverson's remains again, at the impossible bite marks, at the tracks that seemed to show something transforming from human to something else. My mind was trying to rationalize it. Had to be a person. A crazy person. Maybe on drugs. Immune to the cold somehow. Maybe a cannibal who lived out here alone. But I'd seen the fingernails in the tree bark. Seen how the tracks changed. And I'd heard the voices in the radio static. Something was very, very wrong in these woods. And it was starting to get dark. I did what Frank said. Found a small island in the frozen lake, built a fire using emergency fuel tablets and deadfall wood. The flames looked tiny and pathetic against the huge darkness gathering in the trees around me. The temperature was dropping. My thermometer read 43 below zero. I kept my back to the fire and my pistol in my hand, watching the tree line. The forest was completely silent. No wind, no animal sounds, just the crackle of my fire and my own breathing. At 4:30 p.m., I heard footsteps on the ice. Slow, deliberate, coming from the north. I stood up, raising my pistol. This is U.S. Forest Survey. Key, identify yourself. The footsteps stopped. Then I heard breathing. Heavy, ragged breathing, like someone who'd been running for miles. It came from the darkness between the trees, maybe 50 yards away. I know you're there, I called out. Step into the light, slowly. For a long moment, nothing happened. Then it stepped out of the shadows. It was naked, completely naked in 40 below weather. Male, or it had been male once. The body was emaciated to the point of being skeletal, every rib visible, every bone sharp beneath gray, frost-covered skin. The face was sunken, eyes too large in the skull, lips pulled back from teeth that seemed too numerous and too sharp. It was smiling at me. Maggie Thornhill, it said. My finger tightened on the trigger, but I didn't fire. I was frozen, not from cold, but from the wrongness of what I was seeing. How do you know my name? I asked. Maggie Thornhill, forest ranger, 12 years, lives alone. Station 14. The voice was wrong. It sounded like multiple voices speaking at once. Men, women, children, all overlapping slightly. like a choir that couldn't quite stay in harmony. Maggie Thornhill ran from her husband. Maggie Thornhill hides in the forest. Maggie Thornhill is so very alone. It took a step closer. It should have been stumbling, hypothermic, dying. Instead, it moved with terrible purpose. "Stay back," I warned, raising my pistol higher. "I will shoot you." It tilted its head, and I heard bones creak. "Hungry," it said. "So hungry. Always hungry. Never enough. Never full." Another step. It was 40 yards away now. "The man was easy," it said, and now I could hear Robert Halverson's voice mixed into the chorus. "He ran. They always run, but running makes the meat tender. Fear makes it sweet." I fired. The shot cracked across the frozen lake. I'm a decent shot, and at 40 yards I should have hit center mass. But between the moment I pulled the trigger and when the bullet should have struck, the thing moved. It was just gone. No blur of motion. Just not there anymore. My radio crackled to life in moss. I pocket. Frank's voice. "Maggie? Maggie, I heard a shot. Are you okay?" I grabbed the radio, not taking my eyes off the place where the thing had been standing. "Frank, it's here. It talked to me. It knew my name. I shot at it, and it just—" "It's got your scent now," Frank interrupted. "Wendigo doesn't stop once it's marked prey. Listen to me. You need to keep your fire bright. Stay in the light. I'm 40 minutes out." "Wendigo?" I laughed, and it came out broken and slightly hysterical. "Frank, the Wendigo isn't real. It's a legend." "So was what you just saw," he said grimly. "Keep your fire going. I'm coming as fast as I can." The radio went dead again. I fed more wood into the fire, hands shaking. My mind was trying to process what I'd seen, trying to make it make sense. People don't move like that. People can't survive naked in this cold. People don't have voices like that. But it knew my name. It knew I was alone. It knew about my husband. At 5:15 p.m., I saw it again. This time it was on the far side of the lake, maybe 200 yards away, just standing at the edge of the trees, watching me. It was bigger now, taller. The proportions were all wrong, arms too long, torso stretched out. I blinked, and it was halfway across the lake. I blinked again, and it was gone. "Jesus Christ," I whispered. I heard laughter then, all around me, coming from every direction at once. Children's laughter, but wrong. Too high-pitched, too delighted. Something moved behind me. I spun, pistol raised, and saw nothing, just snow and darkness and my small circle of firelight. But I smelled something. Rotten meat. Spoiled, festering meat mixed with the sharp tang of old blood. The smell was coming from right behind me. I ran. Didn't think. Just ran. Away from the fire, out onto the dark ice. After 20 yards, I stopped, turned, brought my pistol up. The thing was standing next to my fire, warming its hands like this was all perfectly normal. In the firelight, I could see it clearly now, and I wished I couldn't. It was at least 7 feet tall. The skin was gray and tight, stretched over bones that had elongated and twisted. The fingers ended in black claws that looked like they'd grown from the fingernails I'd found in the tree bark. The head was misshapen, skull bulging in wrong places, and growing from its temples, pushing through the skin, were the beginnings of antlers. It looked at me across the fire. The eyes were completely black. No whites, no iris. Just black, like looking into empty holes in the world. "Join us," it said in its chorus of voices. "Become the hunger. Never cold again. Never alone again. Feed forever." I shot it, emptied my entire magazine. 12 shots, and I saw at least half of them hit. It didn't even flinch. Just smiled with those too many teeth and started walking around the fire, toward me. I turned and ran again, fumbling for my spare magazine. My hands were numb with cold and terror. I dropped it, heard it hit the ice and skitter away into darkness. I was running blind now, away from the fire, into the darkness. I could hear it behind me. Not running, walking, because it didn't need to run. It was faster than me, even when it walked. I fell. Went down hard on the ice, felt something crack in my shoulder, rolled over, looked up. It was standing over me, 9 feet tall now, fully transformed, Antlers sprouted from its skull like a crown of bone. It reached down with one elongated hand. Headlights blazed across the ice. Frank's truck, modified with snowmobile treads, roared out onto the frozen lake. He was shouting something I couldn't hear over the engine. The thing looked up, actually hissed like a cat, and disappeared into the darkness so fast I couldn't track it. Frank skidded to a stop next to me, already out of the truck before it fully stopped. He hauled me up with one hand. In his other hand was his rifle. "You okay? Are you hurt?" "My shoulder. I fell." "Frank, what the hell is that thin? Later. Right now we need to get you somewhere safe." He pulled me toward the truck. That's when I saw the old logging camp on the shore, about 100 yards away. I'd patrolled this area dozens of times, but never noticed it. The buildings were so collapsed and overgrown they blended into the forest. "There," I pointed. "We can defend that." Frank looked, nodded. "Good eye. Come on." We made it to the camp just as full darkness fell. The main building had 3 walls still standing and part of a roof. Frank lit emergency flares and placed them in a circle around us. He pulled out a bag of salt from his truck and poured a thick line across the open 4th wall. "Salt?" I asked, cradling my injured shoulder. "It's what works," he said simply. Then he opened his rifle and showed me the shells. They looked hand-loaded, the bullets themselves bright silver. "These are blessed. Medicine Man from the Red Lake Reservation made them for me 3 years ago. Frank, you need to tell me what's happening." He looked at me with tired eyes. "You know what's happening, Maggie. You saw it. The Ojibwe aren't telling stories to scare kids. They're trying to warn us." I wanted to argue, wanted to tell him this was impossible. But I'd seen what I'd seen. "How many?" I asked. "How many Rangers know about this?" "4 of us. Well, 3 now. Peterson didn't make it. Anderson disappeared into the woods 5 years ago. We think he became one. And there's Jerry Whitmore up in Isle Royale. He's seen them too." "Why doesn't anyone else know?" "Because who would believe us? And because once you start talking about wendigos, people think you're crazy. The official policy is to keep it quiet. Handle it when it happens. Contain the evidence. That's why they'll call Halverson's death a bear attack." "Yeah." I found an old journal in the corner of the building while Frank kept watch. The Leith, her cover was cracked and moldy, but the pages were still readable. I opened it to a random page. March 15th, 1923. Peterson is gone. We found his clothes by the lake this morning. He's been strange for weeks now, refusing to eat the venison we hunted, only watching us with those hollow eyes. Last night I heard him whispering to himself, "So hungry, so hungry. God help us all." I think he's becoming one of those things the Indians warned us about. March 18th, 1923. Peterson came back. But it isn't Peterson anymore. It tried to get into the bunkhouse last night. 3 of us held the door. It broke Thompson's arm right through the wood. We're leaving at first light. If you find this journal, stay away from these woods in winter. There were no more entries. "Frank," I said quietly, "how do we kill it?" He looked at me for a long moment. "We don't. We survive it. We wait for dawn. They don't like daylight. Not full sun. Makes them weak. And if it comes before dawn..." He hefted his rifle. "Then we find out if these bullets work as well as the medicine man promised." We didn't have to wait long. At 7:30 p.m., it came for us. The temperature inside our makeshift shelter was below freezing. I could see my breath in the light of the emergency flares. Frank and I huddled together, not for warmth, but to watch all directions at once. We heard it before we saw it, scratching, all around the building, like someone dragging claws across the old wood walls. The sound circled us slowly, deliberately. Testing. "It knows we're here," Frank whispered. "How do you kill something that moves like that?" I asked. I emptied my gun into it. "Regular bullets don't work. They pass right through. Has something to do with the curse. It's not fully physical anymore. But silver, blessed silver, that hits something important. Soul deep." The scratching stopped. Silence. Complete and total silence. Then a voice right outside the salt line. Margaret, Margaret Thornhill. It was my ex-husband's voice. Let me in, Maggie. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry for everything, please. I'm cold. I'm so No. My hands started shaking. That's not real. Tom's in Duluth. He doesn't even know where I am. Maggie, please. I've changed. I need you. Don't leave me out here to die. Frank grabbed my arm. It's reading your memories, trying to get you to break the salt line. Don't listen. But the voice continued, and now it was crying. Perfect imitation of Tom's voice when he used to apologize after hitting me, when he'd promised to be better, when I'd almost believe him. I need help, Maggie. Please. I'm bleeding. Someone hurt me. Please. I closed my eyes. You're not real. The voice changed. Now it was my father. Maggie Bear, sweetie, Daddy's lost. Can you help Daddy find his way home? My father had been dead for 3 years. It's not him, I said, but my voice cracked. I miss you, baby girl. I miss my little ranger. Come out and help your old dad. Tears froze on my cheeks. Stop it. Stop using them. The thing laughed, that chorus of voices, and dropped all pretense. We know you, Maggie Thornhill. We know every fear, every regret, every person you've lost. We've eaten so many. Their memories are our memories. Their voices are our voices. A face appeared in the gap of the open wall just outside the salt line. It was wrong in every way, the stretched gray skin, the black eyes, the too many teeth. But worst of all was how it flickered and changed as I watched. One moment it looked like a man in his 50s, then like a woman with long black hair, then like a child no older than 10, then like something with antlers and claws that barely looked human at all. So many inside us, it said. Peterson from the logging camp, and the 3 men he ate, and the voyageur from 1823, and the trapper from before that, and before, and before. We are Legion. We are the hunger that never sleeps. It pressed against an invisible barrier at the salt line. The air shimmered there like heat waves. We cannot cross the salt while it's pure, but salt melts in blood. It grinned. And we are very patient. Frank raised his rifle. Back off. Or what, Frank Morrison? You'll shoot us with your blessed bullets? The thing's head tilted at an impossible angle. You only have 6 shots. We've counted. We know. We've been watching you for 3 years. Frank fired. The blessed silver bullet hit the creature's center mass. For a moment, nothing happened. Then the thing shrieked, all its voices screaming at once in pain and rage. The sound was so loud I felt it in my teeth. Where the bullet hit, the gray skin blackened and spread like ink in water. The thing staggered back, clutching its chest. That's one, Frank said calmly, but I could see his hands shaking. The wendigo hissed at us, then vanished into the darkness. Did you kill it? No. Hurt it, maybe. Bought us time. But it'll heal. They always do. We waited. Minutes crawled by. I kept checking my watch. 7:45, 7:52, 8:01. Dawn wouldn't come until after 7 a.m. We had 11 hours. At 8:30, something hit the roof. The old timbers groaned. Dust and debris rained down on us. Something was up there, moving around, testing the strength of the wood. Frank pointed his rifle at the ceiling. Stay away from the middle of the room. A section of roof exploded inward. The wendigo dropped through, landing in a crouch just outside our circle of flares. It was bigger now, easily 10 feet tall, and it had healed. No sign of the bullet wound. Frank fired. The creature dodged, moving with impossible speed. The bullet sparked off the stone wall behind where it had been. 2! It laughed. It lunged at Frank. He fired again, and this time the bullet caught it in the shoulder. The creature screamed and fell back. Black blood, thick as oil, dripped from the wound. 3. Frank, you need to make the shots count. I'm trying. The wendigo circled us, staying just outside the firelight. I could see its eyes reflecting orange in the darkness. Multiple sets of eyes, like it was many things occupying the same space. You know what you feel, don't you, Maggie? It whispered. The hunger. You feel it already. We marked you. Our touch leaves a seed. My stomach growled. I'd eaten before heading out on patrol, but suddenly I was starving, ravenous. The hunger hit me like a physical blow. No, I said. Yes. It grows in you now. The curse, the need. Soon you'll understand. Soon you'll hunt. Soon you'll feed. It rushed the salt line. Frank fired twice in quick succession. Both shots hit. The creature went down, convulsing, black blood pooling beneath it. 5 and 6, Frank said, breathing hard. He lowered his rifle. That's it. I'm out. The wendigo lay still for a moment. Then it started laughing. It rose to its feet, wounds smoking and closing even as we watched. No more silver, it said. No more protection. Just meat. Just food. It stepped to the edge of the salt line and raised one clawed hand. It extended one long finger and dragged it through the salt, breaking the line. The invisible barrier vanished. No! Frank grabbed a bundle from his pack, dried sage wrapped with red string. He lit it with one of the flares. Thick, pungent smoke billowed out. The wendigo recoiled like it had been burned. Clever. But sage only buys minutes, and we have all night. Frank grabbed my good arm. Run. Now. Get to my truck. What about you? I'll hold it off. Go. But I couldn't leave him. I'd left too many people behind in my life. My father to the cancer. My marriage to the fear. I wasn't leaving Frank. The creature lunged again. Frank shoved the burning sage into its face. The wendigo shrieked and stumbled back, clawing at its eyes. We ran. Out of the building, across the frozen lake, toward Frank's truck. The wendigo was right behind us. I could hear it, could smell that rotten meat smell. Frank threw me toward the truck. Drive south. Don't stop until you hit town. Frank! The wendigo hit him like a freight train. They went down together on the ice. I heard Frank scream. I had a choice. Run and live. Stay and die. I chose wrong. Or maybe I chose right. I still don't. No. I grabbed the rifle from where Frank had dropped it. I knew it was empty, but the creature didn't. I pointed it at the wendigo. Get off him! It looked up at me. Frank's blood dripped from its mouth. Brave, it said. Foolish, but brave. It stood, lifting Frank's limp body with one hand like he weighed nothing. We'll take him. We'll eat him. We'll add him to our chorus. And then we'll come for you. No! I pulled the trigger. Click. The wendigo laughed. Then something flew past my head. A flare, still burning. It hit the creature square in the chest. Frank, bleeding but alive, was on his feet. In his other hand he held another bundle of sage, this one bigger. He must have had a whole pack of it. Silver doesn't work anymore, he said through gritted teeth. But fire and sage together, that works just fine. The creature's chest was burning. Real flames now, not just smoke. The wendigo screamed and dropped Frank. It tried to pat out the flames, but they spread, consuming its gray skin. The truck! Frank yelled. Now! We ran. Behind us, the wendigo was burning and screaming in that chorus of voices. Dozens of people burning together, all their suffering echoing across the frozen lake. We made it to the truck. Frank drove. I held pressure on the wounds on his side, 4 deep cuts where the creature's claws had torn into him. We drove for 30 miles before either of us spoke. Is it dead? I finally asked. Maybe, Frank said. Probably not. Fire will hurt it, make it hibernate for a while. But the curse doesn't really die. It just waits. I looked down at my arm where the thing had grabbed me earlier. The skin was black with frostbite. But underneath the blackness, I could see dark veins spreading, growing. Frank, I said quietly. It touched me. It said it marked me. He glanced over, saw my arm, and his face went pale. Shit. Am I going to become one of Him? I don't know. Nobody's ever survived a marking long enough to find out. We drove in silence after that. The official report said Robert Halverson died of exposure and predator attack, wolves, or possibly a bear. His body was cremated before his family could see what was left of it. The logging camp burned down that same night. Electrical fire from old wiring, the report said, even though the camp hadn't had electricity since 1930. Frank survived his injuries, though he still limps on cold days. He transferred to a desk job in Duluth. Says he's done with winter patrols. I transferred too, as far south as the Forest Service would send me. I'm in Arizona now, in the desert where it's hot and dry and nothing like northern Minnesota. Can't stand the cold anymore. Even on warm days, I feel that supernatural freeze from where the wendigo grabbed me. The blackness on my arm faded after about 6 months. The dark veins underneath never did. I wear long sleeves now, always. But worse than the mark on my skin is the mark on my mind. The hunger. It started small, just being more hungry than usual. Then it got worse. I'd eat a full meal and still feel empty. Hollow, like nothing could fill me. It's been 3 years now. I've learned to live with it, mostly. But some nights, when I'm alone in my trailer in the desert, I feel it strongest. The need, the craving. Not just for food, but for something darker. Something I won't let myself think about. Frank calls me every winter solstice. Just to check. Just to make sure I'm still me. "You hanging in there, Maggie?" he always asks. Yeah, I always lie. I'm fine. Last winter solstice, he told me something new. There are 3 of us left now. Me, you, and Jerry up in Isle Royale. Peterson died in 84, Anderson disappeared in 82, and there's a new ranger up in the Boundary Waters now. Kid named Marcus. He called me last week. Said he found barefoot tracks in the snow near Lac La Croix. Jesus. Yeah, I tried to warn him. Sent him the sage and some blessed silver bullets. Told him to be careful. But you know how it is. Nobody believes until they see it. Is he still alive? So far. But winter's not over yet. We were quiet for a moment. Then Frank said, "Maggie, I need to tell you something. About the marking. I've been doing research, talking to the Ojibwe elders. The hunger you feel, it doesn't mean you're turning. It means you're connected now. Part of you will always be connected to it. That's supposed to make me feel better? No. But it means you can sense them when they're close, when they're hunting. You might be able to help people, warn them. I don't want to go back there, Frank. I know, I'm not asking you to. Just, if the hunger gets worse, if you start having dreams about the woods, call me. Don't try to handle it alone." I haven't called him yet. But the dreams started about 6 months ago. I see the frozen lakes, the pine forests heavy with snow. I see the wendigo still burning, sinking into the ice. And I hear the voices, all those people trapped inside it, hungry and suffering and never at peace. Sometimes in the dreams, I'm one of them. I wake up sweating in my trailer in the Arizona heat, and I check my arms for new dark veins. Check my teeth in the mirror to make sure they haven't grown sharper. Check my reflection to make sure I still look like me. So far I do, but every winter it gets harder to be sure. My name is Margaret Thornhill, but everyone calls me Maggie. I've been a ranger with the U.S. Forest Service for 12 years now, working in Minnesota's Boundary Waters Canoe Area wilderness. That's the northern edge of the state, right up against the Canadian border. More lakes than you can count, thick pine forests, and in winter, cold that'll kill you if you're not careful. I grew up in Duluth, watching Lake Superior freeze over every January. My dad was a fisherman, so I learned about ice and cold before I could read. When I was 26, I left a bad marriage and moved north, as far from civilization as I could get. The ranger station at Lac La Croix became my home, just me, a wood stove, and 60 miles of frozen wilderness between me and the nearest town. People ask why I chose such a lonely job. The truth? After years of walking on eggshells around my ex-husband, the silence felt like freedom. Out here, the only thing I had to fear was the weather. Or so I thought. I'm certified in winter survival. I've tracked wolves for population studies. In 1985, I pulled 2 ice fishermen out of Lac La Croix after they fell through thin ice. I know this wilderness better than I know my own family. I know what's dangerous and what's just scary looking. I know the difference between a black bear's track and a wolf's track in snow. I know which ice is safe to walk on and which will drop you into water so cold your heart stops before you can swim. And I knew about the stories. The Ojibwe elders in Grand Marais. They'd talk about the wendigo. They called it different things, but it was always the same story. A spirit that possessed people during harsh winters, made them crave human flesh, turned them into monsters with an endless hunger. The kind of story you tell kids to keep them from wandering into the woods alone. I never believed it. I figured it was just a way to explain. And why people went crazy during those long, dark winters. Cabin fever, hypothermia, starvation, all that stuff can mess with your head. Make you see things that aren't there. But I should have listened. January 1987 was brutal. The temperature hit 40 below zero, not counting wind chill. 3 feet of snow on the ground. My satellite phone was the only link to the outside world, and even that barely worked half the time. The Forest Service told me I could come south for the month, wait out the worst of it in town, but I stayed. This was my job. Someone had to keep watch. On January 11th, I got a call that changed everything. Ranger Station, this is Robert Halverson. The voice crackled through the static. I'm 8 miles north of Lac La Croix. I need help. Please, something's following me. I grabbed my notepad. Mr. Halverson, what's your exact location? Are you injured? I found my own ski trail. I've been going in circles for 2 days. His voice shook. And there are other tracks, barefoot tracks, in this cold. That's not possible, right? Sir, stay calm. Light a fire if you can. I'm coming to get you. It was human once, he whispered. I saw it this morning. It looked at me with these eyes, and I knew it used to be a person. God, please hurry. The line went dead. I loaded my snowmobile with emergency gear, blankets, medical kit, flares, extra fuel. The temperature was 42 below. In weather like that, exposed skin freezes in less than 5 minutes. If Halverson was seeing barefoot tracks, he was probably hypothermic, hallucinating. I'd seen it before. The cold does strange things to your brain. The ride north took an hour. My snowmobile's engine kept sputtering, which wasn't normal. I'd just serviced it the week before. The forest was dead silent except for the machine's growl. No birds, no wind, just that heavy, pressing quiet that comes before anything bad happens. I found Halverson's campsite at 2:47 p.m. The tent was destroyed, not collapsed from snow, destroyed. The fabric was shredded from the inside out like something had clawed its way out in a panic. His sleeping bag lay in pieces, the down filling scattered across the snow like guts. The food cache he'd hung from a tree was torn open, and supplies were thrown everywhere. But here's the thing. Nothing was eaten. A bear would have taken the food. A wolf would have eaten something. This looked like pure destruction, like whatever did it was angry. I called out, "Mr. Halverson, Robert, can you hear me?" No answer, just wind starting to pick up through the pines. That's when I saw the trees, deep gouges in the bark running vertical. I stepped closer, pulled out my flashlight. The gouges were fingernail marks, human fingernails. I could see where they'd torn and bled, leaving dark stains frozen in the wood. Someone had clawed at these trees hard enough to rip their nails out. My stomach went cold. I followed the marks and found the tracks. Boot prints first. Halverson's ski boots, running. The stride was long, panicked. He'd been sprinting. But next to his tracks were others, barefoot, human, 5 toes, a heel, an arch, in 40 below weather. The prints were spaced far apart, like whoever made them was running fast, really fast. And as I followed them, I noticed something that made my hands shake. The prints were changing. The toes were getting longer with each step. The nails were becoming claws. The foot was stretching, becoming something else. I tried my satellite phone. Nothing but static and... Was that whispering? I pressed it closer to my ear. Under the white noise, I heard voices. Dozens of them, all talking at once, too quiet to understand. I turned it off fast. Hypothermia, I said out loud, just to hear a normal voice. He's hypothermic, stripped naked because his brain's confused. That happens. You know that happens, Maggie. But I'd never heard of hypothermia making someone's footprints change shape. I kept following the trail. I had to find Halverson, had to help him. I found him at 3:15 p.m., what was left of him. I've seen dead bodies before, a hiker who fell off a cliff in '83, a hunter who had a heart attack in '84, an old man who went through the ice. Death isn't new to me. This was different. Robert Halverson was in 3 pieces, scattered across 100 yards of frozen lake. His torso here, legs there, one arm twisted at an angle 20 feet away. The snow around the pieces was pink, not red. The blood had frozen almost instantly. But what made me fall to my knees was the bite marks. The bones were chewed. Something had eaten parts of him. The muscle tissue was torn away in chunks. And when I looked closer at the marks on his ribs, I saw the pattern, the spacing, the shape. Human teeth. I threw up in the snow. When I could move again, I pulled out my satellite phone with shaking hands. It took 3 tries to get through to the district office. Morrison, the voice answered. That you, Thornhill? Frank Morrison, my supervisor, 30 years with the Forest Service, Vietnam vet. Seen everything. Frank, I found Halverson, I managed. He's been killed. Torn apart. Something ate him. Silence on the line. Maggie, where exactly are you? 8 miles north of Lac La Croix, right on the border. Frank, there are tracks here, barefoot human tracks, but they're wrong. They're changing shape as they go and... Listen to me very carefully, Frank cut me off. His voice was hard. Do not follow those tracks. Do you understand? Stay in open areas. Stay where you can see in all directions. I'm coming to get you, but I'm 2 hours out. Can you hold position for 2 hours? Frank, what the hell is going on? Just stay in the light. If you have flares, light them. If you have anything that burns, start a fire. I'm bringing silver bullets and sage. I'll explain when I get there. Say, silver bullets? Frank, what? Do you trust me, Maggie? I'd known Frank since my first day as a ranger. He'd taught me how to survive winter storms, how to track animals, how to find my way home when the world was white in every direction. If Frank Morrison said something was dangerous, it was dangerous. Yeah, I said. I trust you. Then do what I say. I'm coming. Just hold on. The line went dead. I stood there on the frozen lake, surrounded by what used to be a person, watching the sun get lower in the sky. It was 3:30. Sunset was at 4:45. Less than an hour and a half of daylight left. I should have gone back to my snowmobile. Should have waited, like Frank said. But the tracks led north into the thick pines along the Canadian border, and I couldn't stop thinking, what if it finds someone else? What if another camper is out here and this thing is hunting them right now? I'm a ranger. It's my job to protect people. So I followed the tracks. The forest got darker fast under the pine canopy. The tracks were easy to follow. They were the only marks in the fresh snow. But they were definitely changing. What started as human feet had become something else. The toes were too long now, spread wide like fingers. The claws had dug deep into the frozen ground. And the stride, Jesus, the stride was 12 feet between prints. Nothing human could move like that. I heard it before I saw it. Breathing. Heavy and wet, like someone with pneumonia, coming from behind me. I turned slowly, hand on the bear spray at my belt. It stood 50 yards away between 2 pine trees. Naked. Gray skin stretched tight over bones, so thin I could count every rib, every vertebra. Its arms hung too long, knuckles nearly dragging the ground. The face was gaunt, cheekbones sharp as blades, eyes sunken deep in the skull. It smiled at me. Too many teeth. Way too many teeth. Maggie Thornhill, it said. Its voice wasn't one voice. It was dozens of voices layered on top of each other. Men, women, children, all speaking my name at the exact same time. Ranger, alone, so far from home, I can't move, couldn't breathe. Every instinct screamed at me to run, but my legs wouldn't work. Hungry, it said. So hungry, always hungry, never full, never warm, never satisfied. It took a step toward me, then another. Moving like a stop-motion film, one moment here, next moment 3 feet closer, like the space between us didn't matter. You know hunger, it whispered. We smell it on you. The hunger for safety, for peace, for someone to hold you and say it's okay. We can give you that. We can make the hunger stop. I finally found my voice. What are you? It tilted its head and I heard bones crack. What we've always been. What you'll become. What everyone becomes when they embrace the truth. What truth? That we're all hungry, all the time, for food, for love, for meaning, for something, anything to fill the emptiness. Most people pretend. We stopped pretending. It was 20 yards away now. I could smell it. Rotten meat and freezer burn and something else, something chemical that made my eyes water. My hand found the flare gun on my belt. I pulled it out, aimed with shaking hands. Stop, I said. Don't come closer. It laughed. All those voices laughing at once, high and low, male and female, creating a sound that shouldn't exist. Fire won't save you. Nothing saves anyone. We've been here for hundreds of years. We'll be here hundreds more. The winter never ends, Maggie. The hunger never stops. I fired. The flare hit it square in the chest, and it shrieked. Not with many voices now, but one voice, high and sharp and full of pain. It stumbled backward, the bright red flame clinging to its gray skin. I didn't wait to see more. I ran. I crashed through the forest, branches whipping my face, snow grabbing at my boots. Behind me I could hear it screaming. Not words anymore, just rage and pain and that awful, endless hunger. My snowmobile was half a mile back. I'd marked the trail, but in my panic everything looked the same. White snow, dark pines, gray sky. Which way? Which way had I come? The screaming stopped. I froze, chest heaving, breath forming clouds in the frigid air. Silence pressed in from all sides. Even the wind had died. Then I heard my own voice. Maggie, it called from somewhere to my left. Maggie, help me, I'm hurt, please. It sounded exactly like me. Same pitch, same accent, same fear. I'm scared, Maggie. It's so cold, please come find me. I clamped my hands over my ears and kept moving. Don't listen, don't stop. Find the snowmobile. Why did you leave me? My voice again, but sad now, crying. Why did you leave me with him? You knew what he was doing. You knew he hit me, and you left me there anyway. My mother's voice. I hadn't heard it in 10 years. Not since I left home. But that was her, exactly her, talking about my ex-husband. You could have saved me, Maggie, but you only saved yourself. Shut up, I whispered. Shut up, shut up, shut up. I stumbled into a clearing and saw the old logging camp. The buildings were half collapsed, buried in snow and 20 years of neglect. A logging company had worked this area in the early 1900s, cutting timber for the railroads. When the trees ran out, they abandoned everything. Now it was just rotting wood and rusted equipment slowly disappearing into the forest. But there were lights in one of the cabins. Warm, yellow lights in the windows. I knew that wasn't possible. No power lines out here. No generators that would still work after 80 years. But it was 40 below zero, and it was getting dark, and something was hunting me. I went inside. The cabin was warm. Actually warm. A fire burned in the stone fireplace, crackling and popping. Canned food sat on a table. Beans, peaches, Spam. A cot in the corner had blankets folded neatly on top. And there was a journal. Leather-bound, water-stained, pages brittle with age. It sat on the table like someone had just been reading it. like they'd just stepped out for a minute and would be right back. I picked it up. The first page said, "Property of William Peterson, January 1923. My hands shook as I flipped through it. The entries started normal: weather reports, tree counts, work schedules. But as January went on, the handwriting got worse, shakier, more desperate. January 15th, 1923. Lost contact with the main camp. Snow too heavy to travel, running low on supplies. The men are getting restless. January 20th, 1923. Found deer tracks today, but Carl says we shouldn't hunt them. Says the Ojibwe guide warned us about hunting in winter. Says there's something wrong with the deer this year. But we're hungry. January 24th, 1923. Thomas didn't come back from the forest. We found his rifle, but no Thomas. Just tracks. Strange tracks. January 28th, 1923. Carl is acting strange. Won't eat the venison we cooked. Says it smells wrong. Just sits by the fire and stares at us. His eyes look different. Darker. Hungry. January 30th, 1923. Carl killed Thomas. We found Thomas's body, or what was left of it. Carl was there, eating. He looked up at us and smiled. Said he finally wasn't hungry anymore. Said we'd understand soon. We locked him in the shed, but I can hear him talking through the walls. He knows my name. He knows everything about me. February 2nd, 1923. David is gone. Left the cabin last night. I heard him talking to Carl through the shed door. This morning the shed was open, empty. David's boots are still here. He went into the snow barefoot. I'm alone now. I can hear them outside. Carl and David and Thomas. All of them. Talking to me. Telling me to come out. Telling me they can make the hunger stop. February 4th, 1923. I feel it. The hunger. Not for food. For something else. Something darker. I understand now. The Ojibwe were right. This forest takes people and makes them into something else. I can feel myself changing. My teeth hurt. My fingers are too long. I'm so cold, but I don't care anymore. The cold feels good now, like coming home. February 5th, 1923. The entry stopped mid-sentence. The rest of the page was blank. I dropped the journal. He never finished it, a voice said behind me. I spun around. A man stood in the doorway. Young, maybe 25, wearing old-style logging clothes, wool pants, suspenders, flannel shirt. He looked solid, real, human. Who are you? I demanded. Peterson, he said. William Peterson. You're in my cabin. That's not possible. Peterson died in 1923. He smiled sadly. Did I? I don't remember dying. I remember being hungry. I remember going outside. I remember Carl and David and Thomas welcoming me, teaching me how to hunt, how to feed, how to survive the winter. You're not real. I'm as real as hunger, as real as cold, as real as fear. He stepped closer. You feel it, don't you? The thing that chased you. It's not just one creature, it's all of us, everyone who ever gave in to the hunger. We're all connected now, all part of the same emptiness. I backed toward the fire, hand reaching for my knife. You can't kill us, Maggie. We're already dead. Have been for a long time. But we're still here, still hungry, still searching for something to fill the void. Why are you showing me this? Because you need to understand. The wendigo isn't something that happens to bad people. It's something that happens to desperate people. People who are so hungry, so cold, so alone, that they'll do anything to make it stop. And once you cross that line, you can't go back. The fire went out. The cabin disappeared. I was standing in ruins again, snow on the floor, wind howling through gaps in the walls. No warmth, no light, no Peterson. Just me and the journal at my feet. My radio crackled. Frank's voice. Maggie, do you copy? Maggie, where are you? I'm at Halverson's site. I'm tracking your snowmobile trail. Stay where you are. I grabbed the radio. Frank, I'm at the old logging camp, the one from the 20s. I found... A hand grabbed my arm. Ice cold, skin-like, frozen leather, fingers too long, nails too sharp. I looked up into black eyes and a gray face stretched over a skull. Found us, it whispered with 100 voices. The hand that gripped my arm wasn't just cold. It was wrong cold. The kind of cold that burns. I felt my jacket freeze solid under its fingers, the fabric turning stiff and brittle. The cold spread up my arm, into my shoulder, toward my heart. "Let go!" I screamed, slashing with my knife. The blade went through its wrist like cutting air. No blood, no bone, just gray flesh that parted and closed again like I'd stabbed smoke. It pulled me closer. Up close, I could see that its skin was translucent. I could see veins underneath, black and frozen. Could see the skull beneath the skin. Could see through it to the cabin wall beyond. "Join us," it said. Not asked. Said, like it was already decided. Become hunger. Never cold again. Never alone. Never empty. Its breath smelled like meat left in a freezer for years. Freezer burned and rotten at the same time. I tried to pull away, but its grip was impossible. The cold was in my chest now, squeezing my heart. And then I saw them. Behind the creature, behind it, there were more. Dozens more. Standing in the trees, in the snow, in the ruins of the logging camp. All sizes, men, women. Some looked fresh, newly transformed. Others were ancient, gray, and withered like mummies. All of them staring at me with empty black eyes. "You see us now," the thing holding me whispered. "You see what we are, what you'll become." "No," I gasped. "I won't." Everyone says that. Robert Halverson said that. Thomas said that. Peterson said that. They all fought. They all failed. The hunger always wins. The cold reached my heart. I felt it squeeze, felt my pulse slow down. And then I saw something else. Visions. Memories that weren't mine. I saw Peterson in 1923, starving in this cabin, watching his friends transform one by one. Saw him finally step outside, barefoot in the snow, and feel it. The moment the cold stopped hurting and started feeling good. The moment he stopped being human. I saw a voyageur named Pierre in 1823, lost on the ice with his expedition, watching his companions die of hunger. Saw him make the choice. Saw him eat. Saw the transformation begin. I saw others, dozens of others, centuries of winter deaths and desperate choices, all of them becoming this, all of them joining the hunger. "We are the winter," it said. "We are what happens when humans break, when civilization falls away and all that's left is survival. We are the truth no one wants to admit, that you would all become us, given the right circumstances, given enough hunger, given enough cold, given enough desperation." My vision was going dark. The cold had stopped burning. It felt peaceful, like slipping into a warm bath, like going to sleep. "That's it," the creature crooned. "Let go. Stop fighting. The hunger will finally stop." I heard an engine, Frank's snowmobile, roaring through the trees. The creature's head snapped up, and for the first time, I saw something other than hunger in its eyes. I saw fear. Frank burst into the clearing on his snowmobile, rifle already raised. He didn't slow down, didn't hesitate, just fired. The sound was deafening in the frozen air. The bullet hit the creature in the shoulder. It shrieked, that terrible multi-voiced scream, and released my arm. I fell backward into the snow. Frank fired again, and again. Each shot made the thing recoil, made it scream, made pieces of its gray flesh explode into black smoke. "Silver!" Frank shouted at me. "Blessed by the Ojibwe medicine man. Only thing that hurts them." The creature was backing away now, hunched and wounded. The others in the trees were moving too, fading back into the shadows. Not retreating, regrouping. Frank jumped off his snowmobile and grabbed something from his pack, a bundle of dried sage wrapped with red thread. He pulled out a lighter and lit it. To it, white smoke billowed up. The creature hissed and backed away faster. Where the smoke touched it, the gray skin bubbled and burned. "Maggie, get up!" Frank pulled me to my feet. "Get on the snowmobile, now!" I couldn't feel my left arm, couldn't feel my fingers, but I stumbled to the snowmobile and climbed on behind Frank. "Hold on!" He gunned the engine. We shot forward and I looked back. The creature was growing, not getting fatter, getting taller, longer. Its spine stretched, vertebrae popping and cracking. Its arms lengthened until the claws dragged the ground. And from its skull, I saw something pushing up through the skin. Antlers, bone-white and branching, growing like time-lapse footage of a tree. It opened its mouth, too wide, jaw unhinging like a snake, and roared. The sound was every voice it had ever absorbed, all screaming at once in rage and hunger and grief. Then it ran. Not like a human, like a wolf, like a deer. On all fours, using those two long arms as front legs, eating up the distance between us with impossible speed. "Faster!" I screamed. Frank pushed the snowmobile to its limit. Trees blurred past, snow kicked up behind us. But the thing was gaining. 10 yards back, 5 yards. Close enough that I could hear its claws scraping ice, could hear its wet breathing. It lunged. Frank swerved left, and the creature's claws missed my head by inches. It hit a tree instead, and the pine exploded into splinters. We burst out onto the frozen lake. Open ice, nowhere to hide, but also light. The moon was rising, full and bright, turning the snow silver. The creature skidded to a stop at the tree line. It paced back and forth, snarling, but wouldn't come onto the open ice. "Moonlight," Frank gasped. "They hate moonlight. Can't stand direct light of any kind." We stopped in the middle of the lake, surrounded by empty white in all directions. Safe. For now. I oaked at my left arm. The skin where it had grabbed me was black. Not bruised. Black. Like frostbite, but wrong. The skin was hard, frozen solid, and I could see dark veins spreading from the blackened patch toward my elbow. "Frank," I whispered, "what's happening to me?" He looked at my arm. His face went pale. "It marked you," he said quietly. "Put its touch on you. Maggie, I'm so sorry. You'll feel it now. The hunger. It's in you. What do I do? You fight it. Every day you fight it. Some people can resist, some can't." He pulled off his glove and showed me his own left hand. 3 fingers were black, frozen solid. I got marked in 1979, 8 years ago, still fighting. From the tree line, the creature howled. "We need to go," Frank said. "Now." We drove south, 30 miles without stopping. 30 miles while I felt the cold spreading slowly through my arm. 30 miles while I heard whispers at the edge of my hearing. Voices I didn't recognize, calling my name, telling me to come back, telling me they were so hungry, so cold, so alone. We didn't stop until we hit the district office. Lights, people, civilization. But I could still hear them. Calling. Waiting. They airlifted me to Grand Marais Hospital that night. The doctors took one look at my arm and called in specialists from Minneapolis. Frostbite, they said. Severe tissue damage. Might need amputation. But it wasn't frostbite. The blackness stopped spreading after 2 days. Just stopped at my elbow, like it had decided that was far enough. The skin stayed black, stayed cold, but it didn't kill me. Didn't fall off. Just stayed. I wear long sleeves now, even in summer. The official report on Robert Halverson said, predator attack, likely wolf or bear. The northern section of Lac La Croix got quarantined for environmental study. Federal agents showed up and took the logging journal I'd found. They took my statement too, then politely suggested I transfer to a warmer district. I transferred to Arizona, worked at the Grand Canyon for 3 years. Couldn't handle the cold anymore. Not after feeling that supernatural freeze, that wrongness in my bones. Just being in air conditioning made my arm ache, But it wasn't really about the cold, it was the hunger. Frank was right. Once it marks you, you feel it. Not hunger for food. I eat fine. It's a different hunger. A soul hunger. An emptiness that food can't fill, that sleep can't cure, that no amount of company can satisfy. I lost 20 pounds the first month after Lac La Croix. Not because I wasn't eating. Because something inside me was burning, consuming, always wanting more. More warmth. More light. More something I couldn't name. I quit the Forest Service in 1990. Moved to Phoenix. Got a job at a library. Surrounded myself with people, with noise, with heat and light and life. Anything to push back against the emptiness. Frank calls me every winter solstice. December 21st. The longest night. Always the same conversation. Still fighting? Still fighting. Good, keep fighting. He told me about the others. 3 rangers encountered wendigos over the years. One didn't make it. Found frozen in his cabin in 1976, half transformed. Claw marks on the inside of the door where he'd tried to get out. One vanished into the woods in 1982. They found his gear, his clothes, but never found him. One shot himself in 1985 rather than become what he was changing into. Frank and I are the only ones who survived and stayed human. So far. I feel it more every winter. When the temperature drops, when the days get short, I hear the whispers again, calling me, telling me I left something unfinished, telling me to come home. I have plans. If I ever feel myself losing the fight, I've got a plane ticket to Ecuador. Quito, right on the equator. No winter there, never cold. Maybe I can outrun it. Maybe, but I don't think so. Because here's what I learned in the Boundary Waters, what I understand now. The wendigo isn't real because it's a monster. The wendigo is real because it's us. It's what we become when we're pushed too far. When we're too hungry, too cold, too alone, too desperate. When we give in to that voice that says, do whatever it takes to survive. Forget morality. Forget humanity. Just survive. We all have that capacity. We all have that darkness inside us. Most people never get pushed hard enough to find it. But it's there, always hungry, always waiting. The Ojibwe elders knew. That's why they told the stories. Not to scare people, to warn them. To remind them that there are some hungers you don't feed, some lines you don't cross. Because once you do, you can't go back. I see it sometimes in the desert heat when the sun sets and the shadows get long. Standing at the edge of the parking lot, at the end of my street, in the reflection of my window. A gray figure, too tall, too thin, watching, waiting. I keep my lights on at night. All of them. I sleep with the TV on, the radio playing, anything to keep the silence away. Because in the silence, I hear them. All the voices, all the hunger, all the cold. And someday, maybe in a year, maybe in 10 years, maybe in 50, I'm going to hear my own voice among them. But not today. Today, I'm still fighting. If you ever go camping in the Boundary Waters, remember this. If you smell rotten meat and there's no source, leave everything and run south. If you see barefoot tracks in the snow when it's below 0, go the opposite direction. If you hear your own voice calling to you from the woods, don't answer. And if you feel a cold hand on your arm in the middle of winter, a cold that burns, that spreads, that feels almost peaceful, fight it with everything you have, because the hunger never stops, and the winter is very, very long. My name is Thomas Whitlock, and I've been a ranger with the National Forest Service for 16 years now. Before that, I worked as a surveyor for logging companies up in Northern California. I know these mountains better than I know my own face in the mirror. I'm telling you this because what I'm about to share sounds crazy. I get that. But I need you to understand something first. I'm not the kind of man who believes in ghost stories. I grew up in logging country. I heard all the campfire tales about Bigfoot and forest spirits and things that go bump in the night. I thought it was all nonsense. Tourist trap stuff. Something to sell t-shirts and bumper stickers. I'm 42 years old. My wife Sarah died of cancer back in 1967, and after that, I couldn't stay in our house anymore. Everything reminded me of her. So I became a ranger. Found peace up here in the Shasta Trinity National Forest. No kids, no family left really. Just me and these mountains. In 16 years, I've seen a lot. Tracked black bears through blizzards. Pulled lost hikers out of ravines when they were so cold they couldn't feel their own fingers. Survived a forest fire in '71 that came so close to my station I could feel the paint bubbling on the walls. I've dealt with poachers, drug growers, and drunk college kids who thought they could climb a mountain in flip-flops. I'm telling you all this so you know I'm not some rookie who panics at shadows. I'm not someone who makes things up for attention. I'm just a man who saw something that changed everything I thought I knew about the world. It started on October 23, 1973. I was stationed in the northern section of Mount Shasta, about 8,000 feet up. My area covered the North Gate Trail, rough country, dense old-growth forest, volcanic rock everywhere. Not many people came through there, too remote, too hard to reach. That morning started normal enough. A cold, but not freezing yet. We'd had some early snow the week before, just a dusting. The air had that sharp smell it gets right before winter really sets in. Pine and cold stone. I was doing paperwork at my station when the radio crackled to life. "Whitlock, you there?" It was Janet from the main ranger station, 15 miles south. "I'm here. What's up?" "We've got a hunting party overdue. 4 men. They were supposed to check in yesterday afternoon. Nothing since their last radio call 36 hours ago." I sat up straighter. 36 hours was a long time. "What did their last call say?" There was a pause. "That's the weird part. The guy said they were setting up camp, everything was fine. Then right at the end, he said something like, 'Feels like something's watching us.' Then the radio cut out." "Probably just a bear," I said. "You know how hunters get. Every shadow becomes a grizzly." "That's what we thought. But Tom, they should have been back by now. Their families are worried." I looked out the window at the forest. The trees stood perfectly still, not even a breeze. "Okay," I said. "I'll get Pete and we'll head out. What's their last known location?" She gave me the coordinates. Not too far from my station, maybe 5 miles northeast. I called Pete Holloway, another ranger who worked this section. Good guy, knew his stuff. We'd worked together for about 8 years. We packed our gear, first aid kit, extra food, water purification tablets, rope, flares. Standard 48-hour search and rescue equipment. I grabbed my rifle too. Not because I expected trouble from anything supernatural, just standard procedure. Black bears, mountain lions, that sort of thing. Pete showed up around 10 in the morning. He was younger than me, maybe 35, with a thick beard and steady hands, the kind of guy you wanted watching your back. "You really think they just got lost?" he asked as we loaded up. "Probably. Or maybe they shot something and are taking their time getting it out. Elk, maybe." But I didn't really believe that. Something felt wrong. I couldn't explain it. Just a feeling in my gut, like the air pressure was off or something. We hiked out, following the coordinates Janet had given us. The forest was quiet, too quiet. I noticed it after about an hour of walking, no birds singing, no squirrels chattering, nothing, just our boots crunching on fallen pine needles. "You notice how quiet it is?" Pete asked. "Yeah, I was just thinking that. It's weird, right? Middle of the day like this, we should be hearing something." We kept walking. The silence got heavier, if that makes sense. Like the whole forest was holding its breath. We found their camp around 1 in the afternoon. The camp was intact. That was the first thing that struck me as wrong. 4 tents, neatly set up in a clearing. A fire pit with cold ashes, backpacks leaning against trees, food supplies still in their containers, canned beans, beef jerky, bread. Nothing had been touched by animals. No torn bags, no scattered supplies. And the rifles. 4 hunting rifles, leaning against a pine tree like someone had just set them down to take a break. "Who leaves their rifles?" Pete said quietly. "Nobody." I walked over to the fire pit and touched the ashes. Cold. Then I checked the coffee pot sitting on a flat rock near the pit. There was still coffee in it. Cold, but when I touched the metal, it wasn't ice cold. This had been warm maybe a few hours ago. "So, they were here this morning," I said. Pete was looking at the ground around the camp. "Tom, come look at this." I walked over. He was pointing at footprints in a patch of soft dirt near the edge of camp. Boot prints, 5 different sizes. The hunters had walked around here. But there was something else, another print. Bigger, much bigger. "That's not a boot print," Pete said. I knelt down next to it. The print was huge, maybe 22 inches long, 5 toes, clearly visible, pressed deep into the dirt, maybe 3 inches down. Whatever made this was heavy, really heavy. "Bear?" Pete asked, but his voice said he didn't believe it. "Bears don't have 5 toes like that. And look how deep it is. That's got to be 800 pounds, maybe more." We both stood there, looking at that print. The forest was still completely silent. "Maybe we should call this in," Pete said. I pulled out my radio. "Base, this is Whitlock. We found the camp. No sign of the hunters, but camp is intact. Looks like they left in a hurry." The radio crackled back, static, but weird static. It had a rhythm to it, almost like breathing, deep and slow. "Base, do you copy?" More of that strange static. "My radio's acting up," I said to Pete. He pulled out his. Same thing, just that rhythmic static. "Must be the mountain," he said. "Interference from the volcanic rock." Maybe. But I'd worked these mountains for 16 years and never heard static like that. I pulled out my compass to check our bearings. The needle was moving, slowly spinning counterclockwise like it couldn't find north. "Your compass working?" I asked Pete. He checked his. "No. Needle's going in circles." We looked at each other. Neither of us said what we were both thinking. "Let's do a grid search," I finally said. "They can't have gone far." We split up, but stayed within shouting distance. I took the west side of camp. Pete took east. We'd search in expanding circles, standard procedure for a missing persons case. I'd been searching for maybe 30 minutes when I found something that made my blood go cold. Claw marks on a tree. Deep gouges in the bark, about 12 feet up the trunk. 4 parallel lines, each one cut deep into the wood. Fresh, too. I could see white wood where the bark had been torn away. "Pete!" I called out. "Over here!" He came running. We both stood there, looking up at those claw marks. "What kind of animal cat? Reach that high?" Pete asked. I didn't answer. I was looking past the tree, deeper into the forest. There was something up there, something dark against the trees. "Pete," I said quietly, "do you see that?" He followed my gaze. "What am I looking at?" "In that pine tree, about 50 yards out." We walked closer, and that's when we saw it clearly. It was Dave Morrison, one of the hunters. He was up in the tree, way up in the tree. About 40 feet up, tangled in the branches like a broken doll. His arms and legs were bent at wrong angles. His neck was twisted so far around that his face was looking backward. "Oh, God," Pete whispered. We stood there for a moment, just staring. Then I found my voice. "We need to get him down." "How did he get up there?" Pete's voice was shaking. "How did he get that high?" I didn't have an answer. Dave Morrison was a big man, maybe 200 pounds. There was no way he climbed up there himself. And if he fell from that height, he'd be on the ground, not caught in branches 40 feet up. "Something put him there," I said. Pete looked at me. His face had gone pale. "What do you mean, something?" "I don't know. But look at him. Look at where he is. Something threw him up there. Had to." We called it in on the radio. This time we got through, though the static was still there under Janet's voice. "We're sending backup," she said. "Jim Kowalski is heading your way with body retrieval equipment. Should be there in 2 hours." "Copy that," I said. "We'll continue the search for the other 3. After I signed off, Pete grabbed my arm. "Tom, we should wait for Jim. Something's not right here. 3 men are still missing. We keep looking." He nodded, but I could see he didn't want to. "Hell, I didn't want to either. But it was our job. We kept searching. The forest stayed silent. No birds, no wind, nothing. Just that feeling of being watched. We found Carl Jensen at 6:15 p.m., just as the sun was starting to drop behind the mountains. I almost walked right past him. He looked like a post stuck in the ground. That's the only way I can describe it. Carl was in the earth, driven down into the ground like someone had taken a fence post driver and hammered him straight down. Only his head and shoulders were above the dirt. His head was crushed flat, completely flat, like someone had put it in a vise and squeezed until the skull broke. His body had been compressed down to maybe 4 feet tall. The force required to do that, I can't even imagine. Pete saw him and threw up. I just stood there trying to make sense of what I was seeing. "This isn't possible," Pete said, wiping his mouth. "This isn't possible." But it was right there in front of us. Jim Kowalski arrived around 6:30. He took one look at Carl and his face went white. "What the hell happened here?" "We don't know," I said. "But we've got 2 more hunters out there somewhere, and it's getting dark." Jim set up his equipment, but his hands were shaking. We were all scared now. Whatever did this wasn't a bear, wasn't a mountain lion, wasn't anything natural. At 7:45 p.m., the sun was almost gone. Long shadows stretched through the forest. We'd set up lights around Carl's body and were trying to figure out how to extract him when we heard it. Wood knocking, thock, thock, thock. The sound echoed through the valley, like someone was hitting 2 thick pieces of wood together. 3 knocks, then silence, then 3 more knocks, closer this time. "What is that?" Jim whispered. "I don't know." Thock, thock, thock. Even closer now, coming from the north. Then something answered from the south. Same pattern, 3 knocks. "There's more than one," Pete said. We stood there in the darkening forest, listening to those knocks going back and forth, getting closer, surrounding us. Then the scream came. I've heard a lot of animal sounds in my life. Mountain lions can sound like women screaming. Elk bugle during mating season. Bears grunt and huff when they're angry. This was none of those things. It started low, almost like a growl. Then it rose up into something that was part howl, part scream, part something else entirely. It shook the trees. Snow fell from the branches. The sound went right through my chest, vibrated my ribs. The scream lasted maybe 10 seconds, but it felt like forever. When it stopped, the 3 of us just stood there, not moving. "We need to leave," Jim said. His voice was barely a whisper. "Right now." "We can't," I said. 2 men are still out there. Tom, whatever made that sound isn't natural. We need to get out of here." I wanted to agree with him. Every part of me wanted to run. But I kept thinking about those 2 missing hunters, about their families waiting for news. "1 more hour," I said. "We search for 1 more hour, then we head back at first light." Jim pulled out his radio. "Base, this is Kowalski. We have 3 men dead up here. Whitlock thinks we need extraction. Now." Janet's voice came back, but it was broken up by that weird breathing static. "Helicopter can't fly. Fog too thick. Survive until dawn. Sending more rangers." "Did she say dawn?" Pete asked. "We have to wait until dawn?" I looked at my watch. 8:03 p.m. Dawn was 10 hours away. The wood knocking started again. Closer. Much closer. "We need shelter," I said. "Find somewhere defensible." We packed up fast, left Carl's body where it was. There was nothing we could do for him now. We moved east, looking for rock formations or caves, somewhere with our backs protected. Pete found the cave at 8:15 p.m. It was a crack in the volcanic rock, hidden behind some thick brush. Not very big, maybe 15 feet deep and 8 feet wide, but it would work. We squeezed inside, set up our battery-powered lights. Jim was breathing hard, almost hyperventilating. "It's okay," I told him. "We're safe here." But I didn't believe it. Pete was looking at the cave walls. "Tom, you need to see this." I moved my light over to where he was pointing. The walls were covered in pictographs, ancient ones, probably hundreds of years. Old. They showed figures, big human-shaped figures, maybe twice the size of normal people. And in their hands, they held smaller humans, like toys. Below the big figures were people kneeling, offering things, food maybe, or tools. "What is this place?" Jim whispered. "The Wintu tribe," I said. "This used to be their land. They had legends about guardians of the mountain. Said there were things up here that punished people who disrespected the sacred grounds." "You think those are real?" Pete asked. Before I could answer, we heard something outside the cave. Footsteps. Heavy footsteps. Something big was walking past our hiding spot. We all went silent, barely breathing. The footsteps stopped right outside the cave entrance. We could hear it breathing. Deep, raspy breaths. The smell hit us, copper and pine and something else. Something wild. Then the wood knocking again. Right outside. So close it hurt my ears. Thok, thok, thok. An answer came from the distance. Then another. And another. They were calling to each other. We sat there in that cave, not moving, barely breathing, listening to them talk to each other in the darkness. The knocking went on for what felt like forever. Then slowly the sounds moved away. North, up the mountain. None of us spoke for a long time. Finally, Pete said, "What are we going to do?" I looked at my watch. 9:18 p.m. Still so many hours until dawn. "We wait," I said. "And we pray." At 9:23 p.m., it stepped into our light. We had set up the battery-powered lamps at the cave entrance, pointing out into the forest. I thought maybe it would help us see anything coming. Instead, it just let us see exactly what we were dealing with. It was huge, 9 feet tall at least, maybe more, covered in dark auburn fur with streaks of silver along its shoulders. The body was massive, thick muscles, arms longer than any human's, hands the size of dinner plats. But it was the face that froze me in place. It looked almost human, but wrong. All wrong. The face was too flat, too wide. The eyes were set deep under a heavy brow ridge, and they reflected our light like a dog's eyes, glowing red in the darkness. Its lips pulled back, showing yellow teeth, too many teeth. It just stood there, maybe 20 feet from our cave, looking at us. Jim made a sound, a whimper, like a child. The creature's head turned toward him, fast, too fast, and it smiled. It smiled. "Nobody move," I whispered. But Jim panicked. He grabbed his rifle, brought it up. The creature moved faster than anything that big should be able to move. One step, and it was on him. Its hand, that massive hand, grabbed Jim's head, just wrapped around his whole skull like someone grabbing a softball. Jim screamed. The creature lifted him off the ground with one arm. Just lifted him up, no effort at all. Then we heard the crack, like a branch breaking, but wetter. The creature dropped Jim's body and looked back at Pete and me. "Don't move," I whispered to Pete. "Don't even breathe." The creature took a step toward us, then another. It was playing with us. I could see it in its eyes. It was intelligent. This wasn't some dumb animal. It knew exactly what it was doing. It wanted us to be afraid. And we were. God, we were terrified. It reached the cave entrance, bent down to look inside. Its head blocked most of the light. I could smell it now. That copper and pine smell, mixed with something else. Death, maybe. Old blood. It reached one hand into the cave, slowly, like it was teasing us. Its fingers were inches from my boot. Then I remembered the pictographs, the drawings on the wall, people kneeling, offering things, submitting. I dropped to my knees, grabbed Pete and pulled him down next to me. "What are you doing?" Pete hissed. "Don't look at it," I said. "Get on your knees and don't look at it." I set my rifle down on the ground, pushed it away from me. Then I put my hands on the cave floor and bowed my head. Made myself as small as possible. "Do it," I whispered to Pete. He copied me. We both knelt there, heads down, not looking at the creature. I could hear it breathing, feel it watching us. Every second felt like an hour. My heart was pounding so hard I thought it might break a rib. Then the creature made a sound. Not a scream this time, more like a grunt, low and rumbling. I heard it move, stepping back from the cave entrance. The light came back as it stood up, but it didn't leave. It walked around our cave, circling us. I could hear its footsteps, hear it breathing. The smell came and went as it moved. 10 minutes. That's how long it circled us. 10 minutes that felt like 10 hours. Then we heard wood knocking in the distance. 3 knocks, coming from somewhere up the mountain. The creature grunted again, louder this time, and then it was gone. I heard it moving away, crashing through the brush, heading up toward whatever had called to it. Pete and I stayed frozen for a long time. Neither of us moved. We just knelt there in the dark cave, waiting. Finally, Pete spoke. His voice was shaking. "Is it gone?" "I don't know." We stayed in the cave all night, didn't sleep, didn't move, just waited for dawn, listening to the wood knocking echoing through the mountains. Sometimes close, sometimes far away. They were out there. Multiple ones. A whole family, maybe. The night lasted forever. When the sun finally started to come up around 6:30 a.m., we heard the helicopter. The most beautiful sound I've ever heard in my life. We waited until we could see clear sky through the trees. Then we grabbed our gear and ran. We didn't stop running until we reached the clearing where the helicopter was landing. There were federal agents with the helicopter, men in suits who didn't tell us their names. They said they'd retrieve the bodies, told us to go straight to the ranger station and wait there. But before we left, I made them seed. Arch for the 4th hunter. Michael Torres. They found him at 7:45 a.m. He was hung from a tree like a deer carcass, gutted, disemboweled. His insides were gone. Just an empty cavity where his organs should have been. One of the federal agents took pictures, then they told us to leave, said they'd handle it from here. The official report said it was a bear attack. All 4 men killed by a large black bear, likely defending its territory. The case was closed within a week. They sealed the cave with explosives, said it was unstable, dangerous. No one was allowed in that section of the mountain anymore. They put up new signs, drew new boundaries on the maps, areas that rangers were told never to enter. No explanation given, just orders. I requested a transfer. Couldn't stay at Mount Shasta. Couldn't look at those mountains anymore without seeing that face, those eyes, that smile. They sent me to Yellowstone. I've been here for 2 years now. It's different here. More people, more noise. I like the noise. I don't like silence anymore. I stopped hiking alone, started carrying my wife's cross in my pocket. She gave it to me right before she died, said it would keep me safe. I never believed in that kind of thing, but I carry it now. Pete quit being a ranger. Last I heard, he moved to Oregon and became an accountant, works in an office building in Portland. I called him once, about a year ago, just to check in. He said he still hears the wood knocking in his dreams. 3 knocks, then silence, then 3 more. He said something followed him to Oregon once. He was hiking near Mount Hood, and the forest went silent. Every bird, every cricket, just like that day on Mount Shasta. He turned around and walked back to his car. Didn't look back. Said he could feel it watching him the whole time. I believe him. I know there are other rangers who've seen things. We don't talk about it. Can't talk about it. The official policy is that these things don't exist. If you report something like this, they'll say you had altitude sickness or hypothermia. They'll make you sound crazy. But I know the truth. And I know the government knows too. They've always known. There are places in our national forests where rangers are told never to go. Boundaries we don't cross. Areas that aren't on the public maps. When I asked my supervisor in Yellowstone about them, he just said, "Some places belong to things that were here first. We leave them alone. They leave us alone. That's the deal, I guess. We pretend they don't exist, and they mostly stay hidden." But every year, people disappear in the national forests. Hundreds of them. Some are found. Many aren't. The ones who are found often look like they fell from great heights or were crushed by impossible forces. Bear attacks, the reports always say, or falls, or exposure. But I know better now. If you're planning to go hiking in the Cascades or any of the big mountain ranges out west, I want you to remember something. If you're out there and the forest suddenly goes completely silent, no birds, no insects, no wind, you need to leave. Right then. Don't wait to see what made everything go quiet. Don't try to take pictures. Don't investigate. You just leave. Walk quickly back the way you came, and don't stop until you hear normal forest sounds again. And if you hear wood knocking, 3 knocks echoing through the trees, you run. You run as fast as you can, and you don't look back. Because there are things in those mountains that have been there for thousands of years. Things that are bigger than us, stronger than us, and smarter than we want to believe. They know those forests better than any ranger ever will, and they don't like it when we forget that those mountains belong to them. My name is Thomas Whitlock. I've been a ranger for 18 years, and I'm telling you this because I wish someone had told me. Some places aren't meant for people, and some things are better left alone. My name is Jim Keller, and I spent 14 years as a ranger at Crater Lake National Park in Oregon. Before that, I was a Coast Guard rescue swimmer. I pulled 23 people out of the Pacific Ocean. Some were already gone when I reached them. Some I brought back from the edge. That kind of work either makes you afraid of water or makes you respect it. For me, it was respect. I never believed in lake monsters. Never believed in water spirits or ghost stories. I'd seen too many drownings that had simple explanations. Cold shock, muscle cramps, panic. People died in water because they got careless or unlucky, not because something pulled them down. Crater Lake is different from most places, though. It sits at 6,178 feet elevation in the collapsed mouth of an old volcano. The water is so blue it almost hurts to look at. It's the deepest lake in the United States, 1,943 feet straight down. No rivers flow in or out. It's just there, filling that ancient crater, clear and cold and isolated. The Klamath tribe who lived here first told stories about the lake. They called them the dwellers beneath, spirits that guarded the deep water. If you disrespected the lake, they'd pull you down and you'd never come back up. Your body would just disappear. I always figured those stories came from the simple fact that bodies don't float up in water that cold and deep. The pressure keeps them down. Science, not spirits. In 1920, a swimmer vanished during a solo morning swim. They searched for 3 weeks. Never found him. In 1958, a man went out in a kayak alone. They found him floating face down 2 days later. His eyes were gone. So was his tongue. The Park Service said it was fish, but there aren't supposed to be any fish in the upper levels of Crater Lake. The cold kills them. I knew all this history when I took the job. It didn't bother me. I was responsible for aquatic wildlife, management and lake safety. I coordinated diving operations, managed the swim beaches, kept tourists from doing stupid things. It was good work, peaceful work. July 1976 was hot. Record temperatures. The lake was calm day after day, smooth as glass. We had more visitors than usual, families wanting to cool off, divers wanting to explore. On July 15th, 3 experienced divers went down for a geological survey. All 3 were certified. All 3 had hundreds of dives under their belts. They were studying the underwater volcanic formations at 200 feet. 2 came back up. They were screaming. The 3rd diver, Marcus Webb, was gone. I was eating lunch at the ranger station when the call came through. My partner Randy Fisher and I grabbed our gear and drove to the boat launch. It took us 20 minutes to get there. By the time we arrived, the 2 survivors were wrapped in blankets, shaking even though it was 90 degrees outside. He just vanished, one of them kept saying. His name was David Chen. He couldn't stop shaking. We were right there, right next to him. Then he was gone. The other diver, Sarah Mitchell, wasn't talking at all. She just stared at the water. Randy and I got our equipment ready. Standard rescue procedure. Search grid pattern, underwater lights, safety lines connecting us together. We'd done this 40 times before. We knew what we were doing. The water felt wrong as soon as we went under. Crater Lake is always cold. Even in summer, it stays around 45 degrees below the surface. You get used to that. But this was different. We'd dropped through a pocket of water so cold it felt like knives, then suddenly hit a warm patch that felt like bathwater. My dive computer showed the temperature jumping around, 42 degrees, then 68, then 39. That wasn't normal. We followed the line down. The water was so clear I could see 150 feet in every direction. Blue, everywhere, fading to black below us. At 187 feet, I found Marcus Webb's air tank. The regulator was torn off. Not unscrewed, torn. The hose was shredded like something had grabbed it and ripped it apart. But there was no blood in the water. No sign of a struggle. No Marcus. I checked the pressure gauge. The tank still had air in it. Enough for another 15 minutes of breathing. Whatever happened, it had happened fast. Marcus had been pulled away from his air supply while he still had plenty left. Randy and I searched in wider circles. My underwater light started to dim, even though I'd put in fresh batteries that morning. I tapped it against my palm and it brightened again, then dimmed once more. Randy's compass was spinning. I watched it through his gauge cluster. The needle just went around and around, never settling on north. My own depth gauge was acting strange too. It would show 190 feet, then suddenly jump to 210, then back to 180. But we weren't moving up or down. We were hovering in place. I told myself it was the volcanic minerals in the water. Crater Lake sits in an old volcano. There are magnetic rocks down there. That explained the compass. The temperature changes were from thermal vents, underground heat sources. The equipment problems were just bad luck. Maybe pressure damage from the depth. I was making excuses. Part of me already knew something was wrong. We kept searching. At 203 feet, I saw movement in the corner of my eye. I turned my head. Nothing there. Just blue water fading to darkness. I turned back. Randy was gone. The safety line between us hung in the water, severed clean. No frayed edges. It looked like someone had cut it with scissors, but it was rated for 500 pounds of force. It shouldn't have broken at all. No bubbles rose from below me. No sign of Randy anywhere. He'd been right there, 3 feet away. I'd looked away for 2 seconds. I spun in a circle, shining my light in every direction. The beam barely penetrated 20 feet before the blue swallowed it up. Then I looked down. Randy was below me at 230 feet, just hanging in the water, not moving. His regulator was still in his mouth. I could see bubbles coming up from it. He was still breathing. I dove down to him and grabbed his arm. His eyes snapped open. They were completely black. No white parts, no colored iris, just solid black from edge to edge, like someone had filled his eyes with ink. He was still breathing through his regulator, but his mouth moved behind it. I heard his voice in my head, even though that's impossible underwater. They want to show you. I grabbed him and kicked for the surface, pulling him up with me. You're supposed to ascend slowly to avoid decompression sickness, but I didn't care. I wanted out of that water. We broke the surface. I yanked my regulator out and screamed for help. The emergency crew pulled Randy out of the water. He was breathing, but his eyes were closed now. He wouldn't wake up. One of the EMTs checked his temperature. 58 degrees, she said. That's impossible. He should be dead. They took him away in the ambulance. I sat on the dock, still in my wetsuit, trying to understand what I'd seen. Later that night, I reviewed the footage from my dive computer. We'd been testing new experimental equipment that year, cameras built into the dive computers to record underwater surveys. At the 200-foot mark, I could see shapes in the deep water below us. Humanoid shapes, but wrong. They moved too fast. They swam without fins, without any visible motion, just gliding through the water like they were flying. I paused the video, enhanced the image. Pale faces. Dozens of them, looking up at the camera from the darkness. Park Superintendent Karen Yates came to my office the next morning. She wanted to see the footage. I showed her everything. The strange temperature readings, the equipment failures, the shapes in the deep water. She watched without saying anything. Then she paused the video at 004722. A human face was pressed against the camera lens. At 210 feet underwater. No scuba gear. No mask. Just a face. The eyes were solid black. The mouth hung open. There was no tongue inside. "That's Marcus Webb," I said. I recognized him from the photos his wife had given us for the search operation. Karen stared at the screen. "This footage doesn't leave this office, understood? We need to call this in. Send a federal dive team." "No." She closed the laptop. "We can't explain this. If we can't explain it, we don't report it. The park stays open. This stays quiet." That night at 11 p.m., my phone rang. It was the hospital. Randy Fisher had woken up screaming. I drove to the hospital in 15 minutes. They had Randy in a private room with the lights on full. He was sitting up in bed, eyes wide, shaking. "I saw the bottom," he said when I walked in. "They showed me the bottom. They showed me the faces. All the faces. Hundreds of them. They're alive down there, Jim. They're still alive." "Who showed you?" "The dwellers. That's what they call themselves. They've been down there for so long, some of them for 100 years. They guard the bottom. They won't let anyone see what's down there." "What's down there?" Randy grabbed my arm. His grip was weak but desperate. "Don't go back in the water. They let me go because I'm not important. But they know about you. They know you pulled 23 people out of the ocean. They say the lake wants balance. The lake wants payment." I pulled away. "You're in shock. You nearly drowned." "I didn't nearly drown." Randy's voice was flat now, emotionless. "They took me down and showed me. Then they sent me back with a message. They want you, Jim. You owe them." I left the hospital. I didn't sleep that night. The next morning, an old man was waiting at the ranger station. His name was Tommy Yellowhawk. He was Klamath, in his 80s, and he'd never come to the park before. The Klamath considered Crater Lake sacred. Most of them didn't visit. "Your men disturbed the dwellers," he said without introduction. "The lake remembers every person who drowned here. It takes their bodies. It keeps their spirits. They guard the bottom for eternity. You went too deep." "That's just a story." "Is it?" Tommy looked at me with sharp eyes. "Where is Marcus Webb's body? Where were the bodies in 1920? In 1958? The lake keeps them. The dwellers need them. Every spirit makes them stronger." "Stronger for what?" "To guard what's buried at the bottom. Something that should never be disturbed. Something from before the mountain fell." He stood to leave. "They'll let your friend Randy live. But they want balance. They want payment for the 23 souls you stole from the ocean. That debt comes due." He walked out before I could say anything else. I spent that day reading everything I could find about Crater Lake drownings. 17 documented cases since 1900. Only 4 bodies ever recovered. The other 13 just vanished into the deep water and never came back up. 17 drownings in 76 years. That was actually a low number for a lake that size with that many visitors. It was almost like something was keeping the number low, keeping it controlled, selecting specific people. That night, I made my decision. I had to know. I had to understand what was down there. I went to the equipment shed at midnight. I loaded a boat with diving gear. I didn't tell anyone. This was against every regulation, every safety protocol. Solo night diving to extreme depth. I could lose my job just for attempting it. I didn't care anymore. The lake was perfectly still. No wind, no moon. Just stars reflecting off black water. I suited up in the boat and went over the side. The descent was smooth at first. I followed my dive light down through the clear water. At 100 feet, the light from the surface disappeared completely. At 150 feet, I was alone in an endless blue void. At 200 feet, my equipment started for bow. Ailing again. My light flickered. My compass spun. The water temperature dropped so fast I gasped. At 247 feet, they appeared. Dozens of pale figures swimming up from the darkness below. All of them wore clothes from different time periods. A woman in a Victorian dress, A man in a 1920s bathing costume, someone in a 1950s diving suit, Marcus Webb in his modern wetsuit. All of them had black eyes. All of them were smiling. They surrounded me in a circle. I couldn't count them all, 20, maybe 30. Their faces were bloated from the water pressure, skin pale and waxy, but they moved with purpose, with intelligence. They linked hands, forming a circle around me with their bodies. Then they pulled me down. I kicked and fought, but it was like fighting a current. My depth gauge spun wildly, 300 feet, 400 feet, 500 feet. The pressure should have killed me. My body should have been crushed. But I kept breathing. My equipment kept working even though it shouldn't have been possible. At 500 feet, I saw the bottom. It wasn't rock. It wasn't volcanic stone. It was bodies. Thousands of human bodies standing upright in the silt, packed together like trees in a forest. Their eyes were all open, all black, all staring up at me. They swayed with the underwater current, moving in unison like grass in the wind. They were conscious. I could feel it. They were aware of me, aware of everything, trapped down here in the crushing darkness, but still alive somehow. Still thinking, still waiting. Marcus Webb swam up next to me. He took my hand in his. His grip was cold but gentle. "Stay," he said. I heard his voice in my head again, clear as day. "Join us. Guard the lake forever. We need you. We need the balance." "I can't. You took 23 from the ocean. The lake wants payment. 1 life for every life you stole from the water. You owe us. You owe the deep." I looked down at all those faces staring up at me from the bottom. Hundreds of them, maybe thousands. All the people who'd drowned here over centuries. All of them preserved, aware, serving some purpose I didn't understand. "What are you guarding?" I asked. Marcus pointed down. Below the bodies, I saw a faint red glow in the silt. Something was buried down there beneath all those standing corpses. Something that pulsed with a slow, steady rhythm like a heartbeat. "The old fire," Marcus said. "The thing that lived in the mountain before it fell. It sleeps now. We keep it sleeping. If it wakes, everything dies. Everything burns. We can't leave. We can't stop watching. We need more guardians. We need you." His grip tightened on my hand. The other figures closed in around me. I felt hands on my shoulders, my arms, my legs. They were pulling me down into the silt, down to join the standing army of the drowned. I remembered Tommy's words. Offer respect. Acknowledge their sacrifice. I stopped fighting. I placed my free hand on the lake floor. "I honor your duty," I said out loud into my regulator. "I respect your vigil. You're protecting everyone. I understand that now. But let me surface. Let me warn others not to disturb you. Let me keep people from going too deep." The hands released me all at once. Marcus Webb tilted his head, considering. Then he nodded. "Go. Tell them to stay above 200 feet. Tell them to respect the lake. If they honor us, we won't take them. But if they disturb us again," he pointed at the standing bodies, "we'll need more guardians." They pushed me upward. I shot toward the surface faster than should have been possible, from 500 feet to the surface in less than 30 seconds. I should have died from decompression sickness. The bends should have killed me instantly. I broke the surface, gasping. I was back at my boat. My equipment was intact. I'd been underwater for 43 minutes. My air tank should have been empty. When I checked the gauge, it was still 3/4 full. They'd kept me alive down there. They'd chosen to let me go. I resigned from the Park Service 2 weeks later. Karen Yates didn't argue. Randy Fisher took a medical discharge. He never recovered mentally. Last I heard, he lives with his sister in Idaho and won't go, near water. Marcus Webb's body was never found. The Park Service officially listed him as a diving accident, cause of death unknown. A federal team came and confiscated all the dive footage. They said the cameras had malfunctioned. Water damage, nothing usable. The experimental program was canceled. Crater Lake National Park now prohibits all diving below 100 feet. The official reason is safety concerns about nitrogen narcosis and equipment failure at depth. They don't mention the real reason. I moved to Arizona. I picked the driest, most landlocked place I could find. I don't dive anymore. I don't even swim in pools. When I close my eyes, I still see them. Hundreds of pale faces with black eyes, swaying in the current, smiling up at me from the darkness. Tommy Yellowhawk called me once after I moved. I don't know how he got my number. "You saw them," he said. "You saw the dwellers." "Yes." "They let you go. That means something. That means you have a debt now, a balance to maintain." "What do I owe them?" 23 people. You pulled 23 from the ocean. The lake wanted payment. It took Marcus Webb as down payment. One of 23. You have 22 more to deliver. I'm not killing anyone. You don't have to. The lake will take them when it's ready, when it needs them. But there'll be people connected to you. People who matter to you. That's how the balance works. That's the price for entering the deep. He hung up before I could respond. I try not to think about it. I try to tell myself it was all hallucinations from nitrogen narcosis, my mind playing tricks at depth. But I know better. I felt their hands. I saw their faces. I looked into Marcus Webb's black eyes and understood that he was still in there, still conscious, still aware, still guarding. If you ever visit Crater Lake, don't dive deep. Don't swim alone. If the water suddenly goes cold and you see shapes moving below you, surface immediately. Get out of the water and don't look back. The dwellers are always watching, always waiting. They need guardians to keep the old fire sleeping. They need bodies to stand watch in the darkness. And they remember everyone who disturbs them. They remember everyone who owes them a debt. I wake up sometimes and find myself driving toward Oregon without meaning to, like something's pulling me back, calling me home to the deep water. I turn around and drive back to Arizona, but the pull gets stronger every year. 22 more, Tommy said. The lake wants 22 more to balance the scales. I don't know who it will take. I don't know when. But I know they're down there, waiting. And someday, I'll have to go back.